Wisdom verses of the middle way, and then homage to Gautama, who moved by his compassion towards the sacred Dharma to rid us of all distorted views. So today is the last day of our teaching this time, and mainly we are going to do the Bodhisattva Ceremony. As I've said before, Dharma is for, or religion or spirituality is for achieving happiness. So according to Buddhism, this suffering is rooted in our mind, which is unruly mind, and then the happiness also should be rooted in our mind. And when we talk about living healthy, we take care of our physical health, and accordingly we need to know how to keep healthy, hygienic, and so forth, and therefore we need to know the factors which give us good health. And then similarly, it is the case with the mind, because we have this human intelligence, human mind with this special intelligence. We actually have a lot of thought processes going on which bring us happiness or unhappiness, and therefore it is very important to know the working or the system of mind itself. Animals, of course, may not have the same kind of power of thinking that we as humans have, and so it's a matter of whether we pay attention to this or not, that we can achieve our goal or not. And so to know the mind is very important. The health or hygiene of mind is very important. Hygiene of emotion. So with regard to Buddhism, Maitreya Buddha has said that the bodhicitta is the factor which averts our lower realms of existence, birth in the lower realms of existence. So the rebirth into the lower realms of existence is the result of harming others, causing harm and pain to others. And therefore, by restraining ourselves, and we create the causes for higher rebirth in the higher realms of existence. And therefore, by practicing bodhicitta, this altruistic spirit of enlightenment, by studying it and then reflecting on it and then also integrating this principle within oneself. Of course, there is a level of practice where you think, oh, if I harm others, I would actually suffer. I would go into the lower realms of existence, and therefore you restrain those of the negative actions. Whereas in the practice of bodhisattvas, the reason that you use is not that you will go to hell, but then because if you harm others, they are pained. You create pain, give pain to others, and therefore you restrain harming others because you don't want to harm others more than thinking of the consequences that you would face. And so the Bodhisattva's intention to restrain the negative actions is because the sentient beings suffer. Whereas in the disciples' tradition, you avoid negative actions because you don't want to be reborn into lower realms of existence, and also their focus is to overcome the negative, those of the disturbing emotions to reach nirvana. Whereas bodhisattvas their aim is to attain the highest goal of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. And so all the practices that are taught in the sutras, Mahayana sutras, are for the practice of bodhicitta and serving others. And so here again, with regards to the practice of the bodhicitta, you actually use your wisdom, realizing the reality, the nature of things, and then this wisdom, understanding reality, must help you to develop love, loving kindness, compassion, and then that in turn brings up in you that of the extraordinary resolve to take the responsibility of helping others out of suffering on your shoulder, and then you develop bodhicitta. And so this is how the practice of bodhisattvas you go about with the practice of bodhisattvas. And Bodhisattva Charyavatara, in Bodhisattva Avatara, the Shantideva says, so if you are not able to exchange your peace or joy and happiness with the suffering of others, leave alone attaining Buddhahood, enlightenment, even in Buddhahood, even in this cycle of existence, you will not have happiness. And because of our self-cherishing attitude, this extreme self-cherishing attitude, you are led into the lower realms of existence, and all the different misfortunes, the bad things that are unfortunate things that are happening to us in our human society and communities is because of this self-cherishing attitude. And therefore, bodhicitta, this altruistic spirit of enlightenment, and you need to, with regard to this, you need to think how this brings about the temporary as well as the ultimate lasting goal of happiness. Even an atheist who may criticize religion, and if they actually develop and have a warm heart, they will have happiness. And therefore, it's very important. And therefore, in Bodhisattva Charyavatara, Shantideva says, the Buddhas, having pondered what is the cause for happiness, of the temporary and the lasting happiness for sentient beings, and having thought about that, they actually found that bodhicitta is the factor. They have seen or found that this bodhicitta is the factor for that goal. And so, Rinpoche also says bodhicitta is the yardstick of Mahayana. And so forth in his songs of experience. So when you think about bodhicitta, it is something that actually gives you a sense of wonder and amazement. If you really think seriously about it, of course, this happens. How good that if I have this kind of experience of bodhicitta and so forth. And therefore, you should first gain understanding of what bodhicitta is. And on a daily basis, give thought to it over and over again. And from your own experience, you'll find that if you have a good heart, warm heart towards others, you will have good health as well, and you have peace of mind that in turn helps you to have good physical health as well. So we all want friends. And with money or power and fame, I mean, this is not going to come in. So if you have a good heart, warm heart, then you will have good friends. If you disregard and, in fact, forget about others' well-being or welfare and, in fact, go on to exploit others, then how can you have good friends? So it's very important to have a good heart, warm heart. First, let's have tea. So His Holiness was quoting from Master Tsongkhapa's Song of Experience, where it says generating the mind is that bodhicitta is the central axis of the supreme vehicle path. It's the foundation and support of all expansive deeds to all instances of two accumulations. It is like the elixir of gold. It's the treasury of merits containing myriad collections of virtues. Recognizing these truths of heroic bodhisattvas, uphold the precious supreme mind as the heart of their practice. I, a yogi, have practiced in this manner. You, who aspire to liberation, too should do likewise. So, regarding bodhicitta, this altruistic spirit of enlightenment, which is actually complemented by wisdom, mainly wisdom realizing the view of emptiness. So, and therefore, it's very important for us to, in order to be able to develop these principles, to attain human life. So without this human life, it's very difficult on animal body and so forth. They may be able to do to a certain degree, but this infinite altruism cannot be developed on other physical basis, and therefore Master Nagarjuna in his Ratnavali, Precious Garland, says first we should try to attain higher rebirth, and then do the practices to attain the highest definitive goodness, liberation. And therefore, having been born as human beings and having met with the teaching of the Buddha, and to be able to differentiate between what brings about the ultimate goal of the liberation and so forth, you need to study them. So, of course, it's not easy to attain Buddhahood right away in one lifetime. But from following the teaching, practicing it for life after life, you may be ultimately able to reach that goal. Although we may talk about bodhicitta and this altruistic thought or spirit of enlightenment and its greatness and great qualities and so forth. But in order to develop it, we need to take the path step by step and then familiarize our mind with the practices over many lifetimes. And therefore, we need to think about, we need to create the complete conditions for higher rebirth in this life through our practice. And therefore, it is in the Ratnavali, there is mention of the practicing the 10 virtuous actions, and then not harming others, not drinking alcohol, and practicing giving with respect, and then also venerating and those who are objects of veneration, and so forth. Sorry. And so you should also avoid the wrong livelihood. And if you avoid harming others, and of course, others will also be good like you. And so Master Nagarjuna emphasizes not harming others, not using harsh language and so forth, and also not indulging in wrong livelihood. And so, of course, you should show mindfulness and introspection. And so if you take alcohol, you'll not be able to be mindful, and also you'll not be able to watch your mind as well. And therefore, he mentions avoiding alcohol. And then when you give some charity to others, you should not actually look down upon the person to whom you are giving something, but as it is said in the 8 verses of mind training, whenever I associate with others, may I look upon myself as the lowliest of all and regard others the highest. And so you should be respectful to others. And so in this way, there are these 16 factors for a higher rebirth that are mentioned in Ratnavali. And then also you should have some understanding of the Four Noble Truths and their 16 characteristics or aspects. And you should know that it is possible. You should understand the possibility of developing the path, the true path leading to true cessation within your mind. And then think also of overcoming the negative emotions, and you should therefore understand what true cessation is, how it's brought about within your mind, and so forth. I need this a little bit higher. So 400 verses mentions that first we should avoid non-meritorious actions, and in the middle get rid of the notion of self, and then in the end overcome the distorted views completely. And so through these practices for higher rebirth, then you will have this intelligence or the wisdoms which is able to differentiate between what is right from wrong. And then have developed this wisdom of selflessness. And then the third line says, in the end, get rid of all distorted views, which means that you should develop this wisdom which can eliminate, with the help of bodhisattva, so that you are able to, with this wisdom, you are able to overcome or eliminate all cognitive obscuration to full knowledge of everything as it is. And therefore, in the highest yoga tantra, there is this mention, of course, of the subtlest clear-light mind, which is used, which is becomes manifest after the 3 visions of whitish appearance and through to the blackish near attainment dissolves. And that mind, the subtlest clear-light mind, is used in tantric practice to develop this wisdom realizing emptiness. Or this mind is developed into that wisdom. And so this is the reference to that of the third line, saying, in the end, eliminate or overcome all the views. And so on a daily basis, you should remind yourself of these different practices. And as Jetson Kappa says, you should drive your mind towards that. So and develop love, compassion, and on a daily basis, try to develop it further and further, make progress in your experience of love, compassion, and so forth. So if right from the beginning of your day, when you wake up, if you really think about it, give thoughts to this over and over again, you will be happy. I mean, look at this self-cherishing attitude. What does it do to us? Even the slightest provocation, gives you unhappiness. And so right from the beginning of the day, if you become unhappy, your whole day will be ruined. You'll be unhappy. And Because if we take the example of a bad dream, for example, if you had a bad dream and when you wake up, your mind is rather disturbed, you'll not be happy. And so this good heart and warm heart is the root or the source of all our happiness. And so peace of mind also is rooted, peace in the world also is rooted in this. And in family, on family level also, peace in family is rooted in this. If you ask a doctor, a medical doctor, whether anger will be good for your health and to have a peaceful and relaxed mind, or a warm heart will give that. Of course, the doctors will tell you to to relax, but while you physically may be relaxing on a bed, physically, but then if your mind is going everywhere, disturbed completely, you will not have relaxation. And so what actually disturbs our mind must be known. And so this bodhicitta, coupled by or complemented by the wisdom of emptiness, is the source for one's benefits in this life, in the future, and ultimately, temporarily as well as in the sense of the lasting goal. Bodhicitta, coupled by that wisdom, is the source of happiness. And so if you are able to so how do you make this life a worthy human life? Is by developing this warm heart, and using your intelligence, try to understand that it's possible to attain omniscient mind of a Buddha. And therefore, you should, by gaining conviction in it, you should also develop this aspiration to reach, to attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. So this is the purpose of, what I'm trying to give you is the purpose of bodhicitta. And so bodhicitta and the wisdom of emptiness, of course, is something that is taught in Buddhism. Although the warm heart and love, compassion, and so forth are taught in all the religious traditions, Christianity, Hinduism, Islam, Judaism, and so forth. And so the theistic religions actually say that God is infinite love. And so all religious traditions have the same message of developing a good heart. So even with regard to animals, if you are kind to them, they also trust you. Even birds do that. Birds appreciate your kindness. In Austria or somewhere, there is a public garden. So the visitors to that garden actually take a handful of seeds in their hands and feed the birds, and then birds actually come on their hand, land on their hands. You can imagine. So did I mention that the mosquitoes, it's quite doubtful that mosquitoes can appreciate our kindness. Other than that, other animals like birds and so forth can appreciate our kindness. And therefore, kind heart is something that is appreciated by everyone, not only human beings, all living beings or animals and so forth. So I sometimes tell this story that when I was young, in Nobulinka, there were some birds in cages, and there was a parrot. So if you put your finger into the cage, the parrot will actually bite, and you'll be injured, and bleeding would happen. but someone who was teaching me the calligraphy named Kendra Tenzin used to feed this parrot with nuts. And slowly, as Kendra Tenzin, my teacher, was coming to Nobulinka, the birds actually could detect his footsteps and actually intuitively know that Kendra Tenzin was coming, and the bird got really excited. And then, after feeding the bird, this parrot with the nuts, then Kendra Tenzin actually patted its head with his finger, and the parrot felt really good and responded very positively. And so when I saw this happening with Kendra Tenzin, and I also wanted the same reaction, and I started feeding it with nuts, and it took the nuts but didn't have the same expression. And then I got angry and hit it with a stick on its head. And then the next days when I came around, it would just make noise. Cry. And so even the animals appreciate your kindness if you are kind to them. So whether you are a believer or non-believer or even atheist, they may say that called theism or the creation of the universe by God is something nonsense, but love or kindness is something that they could appreciate. So everyone gathered here should think of living a good life, a positive, wholesome life. So we may request lamas and teachers for good life in the next rebirth, and so that we are also saved from the lower realms of existence. But of course, it depends on you. It's on you, in your hands, whether you go to in the next life, go to lower realms of existence, or to whether you attain higher rebirth in the next life or not. In your hands. So if you are kind and loving towards others, you would create those conditions for higher rebirth. So of course we pray to the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and so the objects of refuge, but although they are full of love and compassion, they're full of compassion, they cannot do much. So the Buddha himself has said, you are your own master. And also the Buddha has said, the sages do not wash away the sins of sentient beings, nor do they remove their suffering with their hands, nor do they transpose their own realizations, but by teaching the truth, they lead sentient beings on the path of liberation. And so we need to weigh the pros and cons of self-cherishing attitude. If you remain selfish, rather indulging in self-cherishing attitude, you will remain rather lonely. And then there will be lots of misfortunes, unfortunate things happening to you. And whatever profession you are involved in, if you use your profession to actually help others as much as you can, it'll be helpful to you to have a good life, a happy life for yourself as well. And so on a daily basis, if we could reflect on and contemplate a good heart, kind heart, this is how we should, what we should do. And so for a Bodhisattva ceremony, imagine or visualize the Buddha in person, surrounded by the Bodhisattvas. And then to these objects of refuge, we think of making offering or doing the 7-limb practice, making prostration and making offerings, and then confession, then rejoicing in the good deeds of others, and then requesting the Buddhas to turn the wheel of Dharma and not to pass away as well, and then dedicating these merits. So through this 7-limb, you actually create merit and also do purification practice. And also you should imagine your own master and make this pledge to cultivate bodhicitta, this altruistic spirit of enlightenment. And when you have some Lama from whom you take the bodhicitta, or in front of whom you generate bodhicitta, and you'll be reminded of this occasion and to actually keep up with your practice of cultivating bodhicitta. And also it helps to make your practice stable. And so now we'll go through this the ceremony for generating mind for enlightenment. So in front of you, imagine the Buddha Shakyamuni, who appeared in the world 2,500 years ago. So imagine Buddha Shakyamuni in person, not just as a statue here, but although you see the statue behind me. So of course there are the different religious traditions of the world, Christianity and so forth, which all of them teach the practice of love and compassion, to be kind to others and so forth, and then the practice of patience or tolerance is taught, forgiveness is taught, and contentment and self-discipline. So the Buddha was someone who showed us the path to enlightenment by teaching us the practices which would bring us temporary goals of happiness and joy while we are in samsara, and then ultimate their goal through the practice of the cultivation of the wisdom of emptiness. So the Buddha is someone who I usually, when I give statues of the Buddha to people, I usually describe him, of course, as Buddhists. We consider him as our teacher, the founder. And on top of that, he was someone who was a great thinker. And then, so he taught many philosophical theories, different philosophies, and then he was also a scientist, because he said that his followers, his disciples, should not believe in what he has taught them, but to do critical analysis into his teaching, and then when they find the truth of that through their analysis, and also find them useful and beneficial when they apply the teaching to them, they should then believe in him and not just take the teaching on the basis of faith alone. And so by using critical analysis, and then when the disciples find it beneficial, when they apply the teaching themselves, and they should accept it, and not out of mere devotion or faith. And so someone who lived 2,600 years ago, that Buddha was an ancient Indian scientist, I usually also tell this to people. And then we should also understand that the Buddha was someone who who is essentially has attained the full 4 Buddha bodies. Not unlike some philosophical schools within Buddhism also, who say that after passing away, there's nothing left of the Buddha. Even today, the Buddha is still there. So there was once in Bodh Gaya a Ladakhi monk. In his dream, he saw the Buddha, a very young age, and touching his head as well as his friends in his dream. So in Tibet also there were people who had visions of the Buddha and actually heard the words of the Buddha. So these accounts, perhaps amongst them there may be some which are lies, but we cannot say all of them are lies. So with regard to the lines of the Dalai Lama, the first Dalai Lama had visions of many deities, and then the second Dalai Lama Gendun Gyatso also and had visions of many Buddhas and enlightened beings. As soon as he, when he closed his eyes, he had these visions. And then the fifth Dalai Lama also was somebody who had visions of deities, and then the 13th Dalai Lama as well had visions of deities and so forth. So of the 14 Dalai Lamas, and all the 14 Dalai Lamas, it's only me who has no such visions. But it doesn't matter. But I have actually lots of friends who look up to me. Although I don't have visions of deities, wherever I go, I meet with people who actually smile at me. So if I have the visions of human beings, I could actually share my own experience with them, and in this way, perhaps help others as well. So I prefer the visions of having the visions of human beings rather than the gods and. Because I could actually help them. We could also crack jokes amongst ourselves. So these are practical things that we can engage in. So even if you may have some vision of a deity, it's quite doubtful that you could receive any kind of spiritual feat as such. Something solid. If this is possible, then we have done lots of rituals, prayers, and so forth for some kind of a blessing from the deities. And also we had done certain yantra practices as well, but we have not been able to accomplish anything but lost our country. So, of course, these visions can happen, visions of deities can happen to people. In Sanskrit tradition, there's mention of the 4 Buddha bodies. But in the Pali tradition, the Buddha in the beginning was an ordinary being, and then he went through the practice of austerity, and then at the end and he became a Buddha, a fully enlightened being. So in the Sanskrit tradition, there are these 4 Buddha bodies mentioned, as it is mentioned in Abhisamaya Alankara by Maitreya. The nature body, nature truth body, and then there is the wisdom body, and then the Sambhogakaya, which arises, and which the wisdom truth body, from which the Buddhas arise in the form of the physical dimension, which is the Sambhogakaya, And this Sambhogakaya form of Buddha arises from this Dharmakaya, the wisdom Dharmakaya, while the Buddha is still absorbed in his meditation on emptiness fully. He's still, without wavering from that, he is able to appear in this physical dimension of a Sambhogakaya, and from which arises the Nirmanakaya form as well, emanates Nirmanakaya form of Buddha, and therefore it is possible to have the visions of the Buddha himself, who is the embodiment of these four Buddha bodies. So even today, many different Dharma friends from different countries are able to have visions of deities and Buddhas and so forth. It may be few, but it's happening. So just imagine that the Buddha who lived 2,600 years ago is here with us in person, in the space before us. And then also imagine the great successors to the Buddha, such as the Mahakashyapa, through whom the monastic ordination was passed down to the present time to us. And then also imagine the great masters of India, such as in Tibet we used to have the 6 ornaments, and we used to consider the 6 ornaments and 2 sublime masters of India, who actually worked to disseminate the teaching of the Buddha. And then on top of them, we can actually also include masters like Buddhapalita, Chandrakirti, Bhavivika, Vimuktisena, Haribhadra, Chandrakshita, and those of the Atisha and so forth. So these masters, including these masters, 9 more on top of the previous 8, and I have actually written a praise to them, the 16 Nalanda Panditas. And so you should imagine these Nalanda masters are also around the Buddha and the successors. And also there were masters of Tantra, such as Saraha and so forth, who were responsible for passing down the specialized teaching of the Buddha, the tantric teachings, which were specifically tailored for individuals and beings according to their dispositions and so forth. And so you should imagine those of the Mahasiddhas of India, and then the masters who like Chandrakshita and also Guru Padmasambhava and so forth, from whom with whom that of the Nyingma school of Buddhism started in Tibet. And then also those of the masters of the new translation school, or Sarma, such as the Kadam masters, and then like Atisha and so forth, and then those of the Kagyup masters and Sakya masters. So Kagyup masters like Marpa, Lotsawa and so forth, and then the Sakya masters, the Sakya patriarchs, and Master Atisha and so forth from the Kadam tradition, and then the Sakya patriarchs, such as Sachin Kunga Gyaltsen, Sachin Kunga Nyingpo, and then Sajja Pandita Kunga Gyaltsen, and so forth. The 5 patriarchs, in other words, and the lineage of the Sakya tradition. So within the Sakya, there are sub-schools like Sakya, Ngorpa, and Tsarpa. And then also in the Nyingma tradition, the Karma and Dharma traditions, so the masters of these lineages. And then the master Tsongkhapa with his 8 principal disciples, including those of the 2 principal disciples, and the masters in that lineage. So imagine all the masters of these different Buddhist lineages that spread in Tibet as well. Of course, we consider the 16 Arahats, elders, were actually said to have become the custodian of the teaching of the Buddha. So the Buddha entrusted the teaching in their hands. But we don't have any writings of these 16 Arahats, elders as such, except for one verse, which is the verse which is praise to the mother of all the Buddhas, the perfection of wisdom, which is beyond words and so forth, written by Rahula. So in other words, imagine the Buddha, the 7 successors to the Buddha, and all the masters of India, as well as the 16 elders, India and Tibet, as well as the 16 elders. So imagine all of these great masters, the Buddha and the lineage masters of India, Tibet, and so forth. Not only thinking that, oh, Buddha was great just because it is mentioned in the scriptures, but use your critical faculty to understand the greatness of the Buddha and so forth. So at this time, while you have attained a human body, a human life, and also met with the teaching of the Buddha, you should understand that the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas either have reached the goal of Buddhahood, or are going to reach, or are in the process of reaching that goal of Buddhahood through the practice of the bodhicitta. All the Buddhas of the past, present, and future become enlightened, fully enlightened, on the basis of this principle of this altruistic spirit of enlightenment. So this is their main practice, and this is complemented also by the wisdom realizing emptiness. So keeping them as witness, taking them as your witness, you should make this pledge that you will also, you should also think that you will do your best to cultivate this principle or the altruistic intention to become a Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. This is the 7 limb practice. We are just reciting this one verse. Whatever slight virtue I have accumulated through prostration, offering, confession, rejoicing, requesting, and supplicating the Buddhas, I dedicate all these for full enlightenment. So this is said 3 times. So for the actual ceremony of Bodhicitta, there is a ritual mentioned in the morality chapter of Bodhisattva Bhumi by Asanga, which is very extensive. And then there's also the 20 verses in Ratnavali. So that also would be very good to use for cultivating bodhicitta, and I do this practice. And then there is also verses from Bodhisattva Charya Avatara, 2 verses. So But we usually, for simplicity, use this verse for generating mind for enlightenment. So your motivation is to liberate all sentient beings from suffering together with its causes. You take refuge to the Buddhas who actually went through the path and have become enlightened, or who are in the process of becoming enlightened, or who will become enlightened in the future. From their own experience, they teach others. And so, in terms of the practice, there is the method, such as the practice of morality and so forth. And then there is also the means, which is the realization of emptiness directly. And then those are the 6 perfections, other perfections as well, which are complemented by that of bodhicitta. So you say you take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until you reach the heart of enlightenment with a wish to free all sentient beings. And then the next verse says, enthused by wisdom and compassion, diligently for the sake of sentient beings, in the presence of the Buddha, I generate the mind for full awakening. So diligently for the sake of sentient beings, in the presence of the Buddhas, I generate the mind for full awakening, means bodhicitta. So we'll use this verse. So please kneel on your right knee or crouch. If you have bad knees or bad legs, then you may keep seated. Otherwise, kneel on your right knee. His Holiness is talking to Gaden Tisur Rinpoche, the former Gaden Tiver Rinpoche, that he's able to kneel on his right knee, and it's as if boasting to His Holiness, showing off to His Holiness that he has good knees. So there are the precepts for not causing decline to bodhicitta in this life and in the future lives. And so on a daily basis, after generating bodhicitta here through this ceremony, you should go through this process on a daily basis, 2, 3, or however many times you wish to. So until your death, you should pledge not to harm others, and you should actually think of helping others. So think of leading all sentient beings to the ultimate goal of enlightenment. So everyone will use this text with a wish for, please repeat, with the wish to free all sentient beings, I shall always go for refuge to all Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach the heart of enlightenment. Enthused by wisdom and compassion, diligently for the sake of sentient beings, in the presence of the Buddhas, I generate the mind for full awakening. With the wish to free all sentient beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, until I reach the heart of enlightenment. Enthused by wisdom and compassion, diligently for the sake of sentient beings, in the presence of the Buddha, I shall generate the mind for full awakening. With a wish to free all sentient beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, until I reach the heart of enlightenment. Enthused by wisdom and compassion, diligently for the sake of sentient beings, in the presence of the Buddha, I generate the mind for full awakening. So those of you who know Tibetan, please say this. Today my life has borne fruit. I have attained an excellent human existence. Today I am born into the Buddha's family, and now I become a Buddha's child. Now, come what may, I shall act in accord with this lineage, never causing this impeccable noble lineage to be tarnished. May the sublime jewel bodhicitta arise in those who have not yet, and where it has taken root, may it never decline but increase ever further. This is the verses from Master Nagarjuna's So may I always be an object of enjoyment for all sentient beings, according to their wish and without interference, as are the earth, water, fire, wind, herbs, and wild forests. May sentient beings be as dear to me as my own life, and may they be dearer to me than myself. May their ill deeds bear fruit upon me, and may all their all my virtues bear fruit upon them. As long as any sentient being anywhere has not been liberated, may I remain in the world for the sake of that being, even after attaining highest enlightenment. So with this, we have done the ceremony for bodhicitta and go over this on a daily basis. And then I thought I might also do the 7th chapter of Buddhapalita, but we don't have time. And so we will continue this teaching in the next year from chapter 7. So all of us instinctively have this wish to have happiness and avoid suffering. And so to reduce suffering, we need to use our mind itself. So to develop the antidote, which the main antidote is this bodhicitta, which holds others more important, cherish others over oneself alone. And so think that you will be a good person. So bodhicitta is my main practice, as well as the wisdom realizing emptiness. And so through these two practices, as I explained before, self-cherishing attitude is countered by cherishing others over oneself, which is done by bodhicitta. And then also our misfortunes and so forth also happen because of grasping at some true independent existence in things and self. So I can't say I have a genuine, true experience of these two, bodhicitta and wisdom realizing emptiness, but to a certain degree I could say I have some kind of a simulated experience of them. So as it is prayed to work for the flourishing of the Dharma, I mean, this is also what I pray for, that so just as you have generated bodhicitta to make progress and develop it further and further, not only leaving it as at the level of prayer, but use this same text that you have just repeated after me on a daily basis. Just as when you wake up, you should recite it and then think through. And so in this way, also before you go to bed, you should reflect on these lines. And then as you pass your time, as time passes, days, weeks, months, and so forth, I mean, you will see, and years and so forth, you'll see experience. Of course, you came here during this monsoon time. You have suffered, maybe because of rain and cold weather and so forth. But so when you go back, your friends who are at home there in your countries should be able to say that, oh, this person has changed now for the better, having gone to Dharamsala. If they say that that you have become a worse person, that's really a shame. Next, we will have photo sessions for the Southeast Asian people. So because we have not much space, I'll remain seated on the throne, and then those who those of you who are going to take picture with me, you should come in your groups, as you are already divided into groups. Gone kondo me very sure. Just children boche my ke panam ke juji ke nyamba me ba yon gone kondo pe wa sho. My ke panam ke juji ke nyamba me ba yon gone kondo pe wa.
Page 21 of your text. To the assembly of most high teachers, both present and past, the miraculous dance of the body, speech, and mind of innumerable Buddhas, manifesting in equal aspirants, spiritual capacities, the wish to bring truth, the source of all virtue.
Page 21.
To you, we offer you prayers with fervent devotion. That dancing Gacho, protector of the land of slows, live for 100 eons.
Shower on him your blessings so that his aspirations fulfilled without hindrance. To the assembly of all meditational deities, manifesting as countless mandalas and divinities, the magical clouds of
immaculate transcendent wisdom, reaching to the furthest expanse of the space of ultimate reality. To you we offer prayers with fervent devotion. That dancing Gacho, protector of the land of snows, live for 100 eons. Shower on him your blessings so that his aspirations are fulfilled without hindrance. To all the ritualist Buddhists of the three times, endowed with 10 powers and who are even masters of the gods, and whose attributes of perfection are the source of all compassionate deeds, benefiting the vast ocean-like realm of sentient beings. To you we offer prayers with fervent devotion. That dancing Gacho, protector of the land of slows, live for 100 years. Shower on him your blessings so that his aspirations are fulfilled without hindrance. To the assembly of sacred doctrine, embodied in the three vehicles, supremely surround a treasure of enlightenment, stainless, unchanging, eternally good, and the glory of all virtues, which actually liberates beings from the suffering of the three worlds. To you we offer prayers with fervent devotion. That dancing Gacho, protector of the land of slows, live for 100 eons. Shower on him your blessing, so that his aspirations are fulfilled without hindrance. To all members of the entire noble spiritual community, who never stray from the thoughtfully liberated adornment city, who possesses the wisdom eye that directly sees the profound truth and the highest value to destroy all maturation of psychic systems. To you we offer prayers with fervent devotion. That dancing Gacho, protector of the land of slows, live for 100 years. Shower on him your blessings so that his aspirations are fulfilled without hindrance. To the assembly of eons, heavenly beings of the three worlds, who appear in the highest paradise, in the places, and in the celebration grounds, and who, through creative play in the hundredfold experiences of bliss and emptiness, support practitioners in their meditation on the excellence path. To you we offer prayers with fervent devotion. That dancing Gacho, protector of the land of slows, live for 100 eons. Shower on him your blessings so that his aspirations are fulfilled without hindrance. To the ocean of protectors endowed with
the powerful guardians and upholders of the teaching, who were inseparably on their matted locks, the knot symbolizing their pledge to the Vajra holder. To you we offer prayers with fervent devotion, that Tenzin Gyatso, protector of the land of snows, live for 100 aeons. Shower on him your blessings so that his aspirations are fulfilled without hindrance. Thus, to this congregation of excellent, undeceiving refuge, we pray that by the power of this prayer, expressed from a heart filled with devotion and humility, may the motive, speech, and mind of the sole protector of the land of snow, the Supreme Ngawang Losang Tenzin Gyatso, be indestructible, unfluctuating, and unceasing. May he live for 100 aeons, seated on a diamond throne, transcending decay and destruction. You are the jewel heart, embodying all compassionate, beneficial deeds. O most courageous one, you carry on your shoulders the burden of all the Buddhas of the infinite realms. May all your noble aspirations be